Better System Trader, Episode 14.
Welcome to Better System Trader, the podcast to help systematic traders of all levels improve their trading. We'll give you loads of expert tips and practical advice on system design and validation, money management, trading psychology, and many other topics. Whether you're just starting out or a savvy systematic trader, we're here to help you improve your trading and find more success. This is Better System Trader with your host, Andrew Swanscott.
Welcome to the Better System Trader podcast. This is episode 14. I'm your host, Andrew Swanscott. This week's episode has come about as a direct result of an email I sent asking for your biggest trading challenge. We received quite a few responses from traders experiencing issues with the psychological or emotional side of systematic trading. For example, how to handle losses or fear of losses, struggling to pull the trigger, taking profits early, not exiting at stop levels, and generally not following the system due to fear or lack of confidence. I'm sure most of us have experienced these at some point in the past and perhaps in the future too, and they can have a large impact on trading results. So thank you to all those that shared your biggest trading challenge. I hope this episode and future episodes that cover other trading challenges really help to improve our trading results. If you haven't submitted your biggest trading challenge yet and would like to have a say in future episodes, you can do so by heading over to bettersystemtrader.com/mytrading. That's bettersystemtrader.com/mytrading, all one word, and that'll redirect you to a short survey. The survey is only 4 simple questions, so it's really easy and will take you literally 1 to 2 minutes. You don't have to submit any personal details either, and I do read every single submission, so it's a great way to get involved, and you may get an episode that covers exactly what you're looking for. Anyway, on to this week's guest, who has more than 15 years of practice as a licensed therapist, also working for many years as a personal development coach teaching individuals how to affect positive change, peak performance, personal growth, and leadership potential. He has worked with countless traders, helping them to improve their trading by regulating emotions and breaking out of life-limiting patterns, which is really important in trading success. He is the author of 3 books and maintains both a counseling and personal development practice. In this episode, we discuss the most common issues limiting trader performance, the impacts of emotions on results, the importance of managing process, not outcome, and tips on improving our trading performance. So let's get to it. This week's guest is Rande Howell from Trader State of Mind. I hope you enjoy it. Hi, Randy. Thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
If we can just start by providing us with a bit of your background on what you do now and how you got into that field.
Well, I consider myself to be a performance coach, and it started out on serendipity. This was not my plan. I'm a licensed therapist in North Carolina, and I got very bored with the therapeutic or clinical clients, and I had branched into performance coaching. And in Charlotte, North Carolina, we have lots and lots of bankers. We have a large banking center here, and we also have lots and lots of golfers. And so I was very focused on performance with golf and with bankers. And then one day, out of nowhere, a guy calls up and says, "I'm having performance issues." And I said, "Well, great, that's what I do." And he showed up, and he was a trader in a hedge fund. And we started working, and I didn't really even know that much about it, but I was fascinated because of the motivation, the level of work. I would give homework, and he devoured it and wanted more and more and more. And I started realizing, wow, this guy is really phenomenal about it. And he grew and he grew. Within 6 months, he was a very changed trader. And then he started referring people to me. And one day, my wife and I noticed that the major part of our business was traders, and we started focusing on that. And that's how it came to be. It started out, like I said, it was just an accidental encounter, and it's grown to where I work on an international stage now. I speak internationally, and who would have thought? But it's been a great ride. By the way, what I like about traders, portfolio managers versus other self-development type of groups is that in this profession, there is a black and white truth meter called the trading account or the benchmark. Okay?
Yep.
and it will cut through everything. And fundamentally what you're doing, if you accept the assumption that the trading account is telling you how effective the beliefs are that you used to interpret the markets, and it's telling you in really rapid time, you see that, okay, now I have a barometer that I can cut to the belief system that I'm trading with. And that's the level that I actually work with. So to me, it's a wonderful group of people to work with, and you cut all the BS out. That's what I like about this particular group of people.
Right. So moving from sports psychology to trading, was that a difficult transition, or there are a lot of similarities there?
Similar. The major thing is that they're all about preparation and stuff like that. But the thing about trading versus sports is that, first of all, the time frames are different. Is that in most sports, you have to be able to maintain a particular mind for short durations of time, whereas in trading, you have to be able to maintain that mind for longer durations of time, which means it's actually harder in that respect. And the other thing is that you have to watch the physical arousal in sports. The physicality is part of overcoming and reaching victory. And you have to get the physicalness there. You have to get yourself pumped up and ready. If you do that in trading, you're going to cut your throat. And the other thing in trading is that you're no longer trying to control outcome. What you're doing is you realize that outcome cannot be controlled. Control of outcome is illusion. And what you're doing is you're focusing entirely on the process, the mind that you're bringing into the moment of performance. That's the only thing you can control. Those are the major differences. And it comes down to the management of emotion from a biological standpoint, and then deciding what emotional cocktail you're going to produce the mind that you're going to perform with. And outside of that, you stay in that performance mode rather than locking into the mode of thinking that you're going to control outcome. If you're looking at your P&L statement as you're trading, you're sunk. You're in outcome. You're not in process.
You've already mentioned a couple, but what do you think is some of the most common issues you see that are impacting trader performance?
Well, when it comes down to it, particularly with experienced traders, usually they're at least at scratch where they're not losing money by the boatload. But initially what you see is not taking the trades that you need to be taking. When you're a professional trader, is you have to knock up the numbers. And what you're doing is that when you have a valid setup, you're taking it. And you're still looking, and I was actually noticing this in some of your notes, is that you're still having people with, how did they describe it? They said that pulling the trigger thing, okay? You're still having people having problems at entry, okay? But the major one that happens with professional traders is the fear of missing out of profits, that scarcity thinking, where they're taking profits earlier and they're not letting the profits ride. And that basically you're having to get in to get at that. That's the belief that you have to really get in. That's what I see mostly in the professional group, that particularly that leaving, just taking profits too early.
All right. So if we can just talk a little bit about the first issue you mentioned, not taking trades or struggling to pull the trigger. What are some possible causes to that?
Well, it all comes back to the fear of the unknown. Your body, through evolution, is wired to have a bias toward controlling outcome. And, we're alive today, we're a dominant species, so you can't argue with the genetics of it. The problem is that trading is 180 degrees opposite to the evolutionary brain that we brought for survival. In survival, you're trying to control outcome, and, out of that, you perpetuate species and stuff like that. The key is that drive for self-preservation in the short term gets in the way of the probability mindset that's required for trading. Probability, that you can do everything right and you can still lose. You do it anyway because probability is on your side. The survival brain, the emotional brain, is not going to, it's just not going to go that way. It's going to always, it will generate hesitation. And by generating hesitation, it wins because you didn't get into risk. Okay. And so to the emotional brain, that's victory. And it's going to wire it so that it becomes an even more insulated circuit and fires even faster. Your job, particularly in entry stuff, is to recognize that it's just not your biology and psychology, okay? It's them working together. And you are, by nature, going to have a fear of the unknown, and you're going to choose not to enter the unknown. And yet, at the same time, you can't play the game of trading if you do that. And ultimately, you have to be able to calm the emotions down so that they're not hijacking the mind that you need, and you have to build a mind that is comfortable and engages uncertainty and the whole notion of the unknown. That's what you have to do, and we can talk more about that.
Yeah, sure. I'd be interested to know what type of strategies can we use to calm the emotions down?
Well, first of all, you have to recognize that emotions, first of all, they're not optional. There's no such thing as freedom from emotion. There is freedom of emotion. And part of it is recognizing that emotions are biological. They are not psychological. But what happens is they take over psychology. And all thinking is emotional state dependent. So literally the kind of thinking you're capable of is dependent upon the emotional state you're in at any particular moment in time. So if you grasp that the very first thing is that emotions are biological, that means there is a biological signature to all emotion. And like fear, for instance, if your audience, we here in America are about entering the 4th of July thing, and nobody's trading. Everybody's taking vacations. But tomorrow or Monday or whenever you do it, you start trading and you start watching yourself. Put a mirror up, just watch yourself. Or if you have the ability of putting a video feed on yourself, watch yourself. You will see your face tightening. You will see your body tightening. You will see yourself become fixated. Some of the people I was reading about in these notes you sent me, it's very clear that the biology of fear is already there, and they don't even recognize the biology is there. If you recognize that, what you can do is that fear and breathing is a particular kind of breathing that supports fear. It's very shallow, or you halt breathing, and the shallowness is only with the top third of the lung. What you're ultimately doing by shallow breathing is you're cutting off oxygen supply to the brain, so you can't think. And what you're simultaneously doing is you're getting the body prepared to run. And ultimately, so what you're doing initially, and this is something I teach in my courses, is that what you're doing is you're regulating the emotion by breath, because if you start breathing diaphragmatically, bellows breathing, literally that style of breathing of moving air into the belly and then into the chest is incompatible with the emotional state fear. Okay? It will disrupt the ability for fear to maintain itself. Then if you go in and you relax the muscles, what you're doing is you're also disrupting the arousal phase part of the emotional state of fear, and you get a lot more control over the emotion, a lot more control. That's the beginning. The other element of it is what's happening in mind. The most dangerous thing that people do is they try to ignore the fear. What I do is I teach, once you learn to manage the fear, you turn toward the fear. You look at the fear as your teacher, because as long as the fear is there, it's capable of ambushing mind, whether or not you like it or not. But turning toward it with a different set of skills, what you learn to do is you learn to reprogram the response to uncertainty that has been programmed in the fear response, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I guess it may be difficult to identify by looking at your body to try and catch when those emotions start. Are there any tricks to being able to identify that early so you can react on it before it becomes a problem?
Oh God, yeah. In my work, I either have people with a mirror where they're training themselves to look and to check out what their face, and this is Paul Ekman's work. And this is the facial expressions, the decoding and stuff like that, is what you're doing is you're teaching a person to check in to yourself. In the video feed, I have a number of traders I work with that have video feeds where they're watching a video monitor and record themselves. And you can catch the emotional state a long time before it happens. I also teach people. Right now I'm training a guy who is moving from one level of sizing to the next level of sizing, and he's having some problems. And what we've done is we put a heart monitor on him. Okay. And ultimately, what we know that his heart rate at rest is around 60 beats per minute. When he sized up, what he discovered is his heart rate was 80 beats per minute. Now, what you're doing is you're looking at the acceleration of fear. It's what you're looking at on a physiological level. And he's got this in real time. So now what he's doing is he's recognizing that as his heart rate goes up, he knows that the fight-flight response has been triggered. And so what he's doing with all the skills that he's taught, he's teaching first with the biology of the emotion. He's calming the emotion down so that it's cooling back down to like 70 beats per minute. He's no longer triggering the fight-flight response and the fear and the sense of like, oh my God, I'm going to lose everything. What am I doing? Blah, blah, blah. That sense of powerlessness that happens. So that's a lot of the stuff. And again, anything that measures heart rate or heart rate variability or skin conductance in real time, it's measuring the genesis of an emotion as it's happening, and it gives a trader a lot of head start, particularly when in the training phases, like what I just described as a training phase of moving a trader from one level to another level. And of course, there's going to be problems. Anytime you move from a homeostasis where your body, your mind is used to something, then you move it to another level. The body's not comfortable with that, and it's going to trigger to the fear of the unknown again, because it's not comfortable at that level yet, and you're just building the skills. So there's lots of things that can be done, but the major thing is without all the toys of heart rate monitors and video cameras and things like that, you're still teaching yourself to monitor stress levels. I had one fund manager recognize that he has that rapid foot syndrome where it just starts really cranking, and he realized oh my God, I'm beginning to understand. Once he got the connection, oh my God, that's arousal of an emotion. And he realized that better to catch it then than to when the anxiety had kicked in, and suddenly anxiety is going to cause you to think about the future pretty bleakly. Like, oh my God, bad things are going to happen in the future. That's just anxiety controlling thought. That's all it is. And he's recognizing there are certain signals that my body is telling me that if I become observant of those signals, I can catch the emotion a long time before it becomes damaging to the mind that I'm bringing to the moment of trading. So there's lots of things that can be done about that.
Right, but what about a problem like patience, perhaps doing nothing when there are no good setups? I imagine that probably wouldn't be a result of an emotional arousal, would it?
No, what happens is in patience and boredom, it's what you're asking to do. If you're developing yourself as a professional trader and you get bored, you need to be asking, what is this conversation in my mind about boredom? Okay. Most likely what you're going to find is a conversation that assumes you need to be doing something to be doing something. You need to be taking action. You need to be making things happen. And that is an enormously dangerous attitude to fall into as a trader. Because, as a trader, you are waiting for the market to show you what it's willing to give you. You're not making things happen. It's a huge thing. So patience is something that, from my perspective, is a practice. And it's something that is just not something that you go pick up off the bookshelf and say, okay, well, I'm patient now. No, what happens is patience is a practice of, again, where you start with You start with managing the body of emotion, then you go to mindfulness. And then within the way I teach mindfulness, what you're asking, what is this conversation of urgency to act? Okay. It's a kiss of death to a trader. And so you're saying, okay, there's the urgency that I know that I'm a type A. I have that part of my type A in me. I need to decide whether or not I want to be right or whether or not I want to be effective. And a lot of people really, when you're seeing urgency to act, when you're seeing the boredom, what you're looking at is a guy trying to control outcome. And it comes back to, I need to step back. I need to practice patience. I need to calm myself down. And I need to see what the market's telling me. That's the 180-degree difference between the biology of the hunter, the one who's out, looking for something and making something happen. And I'll tell you, it's a good example, Andrew, is that if you take a look at the African lion and the way it hunts, and if you take a look at the American cougar and the way it hunts, both are apex predators. Both are big cats, okay?
Yep.
The lion hunts in a pack, stalks, and chases, okay? And they also have a lot of injury, and they have coordinated attacks. And they're a very successful predator. If you took that same big cat and put him into the American forest, he'd starve, okay? However, the American cougar is also a big cat, and the way that cougar hunts is that it will climb a tree, it will climb a ledge, and it will wait very patiently for the deer to walk into the setup. And if you looked at a cougar hunting, you would think that the cat was sleeping. It's just hanging out, not doing much of anything. Yet, they have an enormously high kill rate, and they also have a very low injury rate. But yet, if you took the cougar and put him into the Serengeti Plains, he would be a very poor hunter. What you're looking at is two different hunting strategies that have evolved. Those big cats can't help but be those hunting strategies. You and I and traders, we can design the mind that we're bringing into is you are not a stalking hunter in trading. If you are, you're going to be looking at your trading account going down. You are an ambush hunter like the cougar. And I have actually a number of traders who think symbolically in terms of cougar as they trade, because what they're doing is they're recognizing the patience is the work of trading. And if you're getting bored, you're falling out of an effective work mind for trading. And that's something you need to look into the mind and you say, what's going on inside the committee of the mind that has me bored when this is the work of trading? Patience is the work of trading. So to me, it's a signal that the psychology has not gelled, and you need to work. You need to work on patience. And again, I work on patience all the time. I have a tendency to want to make things happen, yet I have to step back, mindfulness. I have to calm the body down, get the urgency gone, and allow things come to me. That's a practice. It's something that you train to. It's not an event that you have an aha moment and you're patient for the rest of your life. It is a practice that you establish and you maintain over time. It's the cost of being a professional trader.
So that's interesting. So you're really reframing patience or doing nothing as being part of the action of trading.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, is how many traders do you know who make money by chasing trades? Okay. And what happens is a trader gets bored. Suddenly all those squiggly lines they see on their charts, suddenly they see entry points. And, when they're in a sane mind, they don't see the entry points. When you have a patient mind, it's much easier to see those squiggly lines showing up to classical and highly effective setups. And it just depends on what mind you're bringing into the moment of observation. Because, Andrew, the interesting thing about neurobiology is that in neurobiology, what we would say is that you have never seen reality. Or as a trader would say, you have never seen the markets. What you have experienced is your brain taking the sensorial modalities and organizing a virtual representation of the reality out there, okay? And what you're doing is that you're using the trading account to say, okay, what happens is I have a benchmark that assesses the effectiveness of the virtual representation that I have of the markets. That virtual representation is dependent upon the beliefs that you're projecting upon the markets and the current observer you are of the markets. Because in neurobiology and in quantum mechanics, what you get very quickly is that all reality is observer generated. And it goes back to the wanting to make things happen, is that's observer generated. Suddenly you start seeing things that the market's not revealing to you. You're you're projecting that onto there. And so if you use your trading account as basically as your best friend, kind of a brutal best friend, but what it's doing is it's brutally telling you exactly the quality of your belief systems. And a impatient belief system in trading just simply doesn't have it has a place. It has a place for professional traders to take advantage of people who are impatient. They do it every day.
Yeah, right. Okay, I think you may have already touched on this a little bit, but we often see people who are successful in a corporate or business context get involved in trading, expecting that their external success will translate into market success, but they often, find it a real struggle. Why do you think that is?
The rules for success in the world out there, the world of corporate or business, are very, very different than the rules of success in trading. The rules of success in business is literally about action, about taking effective action and pushing it and making things happen. And I call that the alpha mentality. And it is, like I said, it produces success in a lot of endeavors. When you bring that alpha mentality into trading, it's going to blow you up, because the thing is you do not control outcome. You cannot make things happen. It's kind of like you can't make things happen. You can let things happen. And at some moment, you discover that you never had a choice. Okay? And until the alpha learns that, he's cooked. I actually had a client a number of years ago that had been enormously successful in business. I mean, the guy literally, when he graduated college, he sold a bar business that he started in college for $500,000 in US dollars. And then, as he moved up the scale, he just proved his acumen in business it was great. His brother was a trader, and this guy looked at trading and says, "Oh, this is a business that is capital intensive." Well, it just so happens I just sold a business for cash. I have a lot of money. I have a lot of cash on hand. I'm just going to learn this business, and then I'm going to start applying cash to it. 3 years later, he wasn't profitable. Okay. And with me, he became profitable. But what he did is he finally realized, Randy, I don't want to be the person that I have to be successful in trading. And he went back out and he bought another business and he built the business up, and he's doing what he does. But the alpha mentality of making things happen, of controlling outcome, is the antithesis of what success in trading is required. Where literally, it's not so much you're passive. I mean, nobody has ever said an American cougar is passive. It's very patient, but when it attacks, it's a very dangerous attack. And the same thing is that the cougar is waiting for the white-tailed deer to come into the setup for the ambush. He's not stalking it the way success in the outside world is generally gotten. It's a very big difference, and that's why the alphas have a lot of difficulty, and they need to decide whether or not they're willing to do some major rearranging of their psychology to become successful in trading. And it's, like I said, this guy that I was telling you about, he came to the moment where he saw what success was. He started having success, but he didn't like the patience. He didn't like the patience, and he wanted the world around him. He was a control freak, and he wanted to be able to do that. And that's just not the way. That's not the way of success in trading.
Right. So are there any other traits other than being a control freak that you think don't really align with being a successful trader?
Yeah, the opposite of the control freak is the perfectionist. And what happens is those are the ones that die the death of a thousand tiny cuts. Is that the perfectionist is looking not to be wrong, and usually has done well by not being wrong or always being right in a corporate world or in a business world. And then you get into trading, and the paradox of trading is you can do everything right and you can still be wrong. It's all about probability. And once you realize it's all about probability, you realize you cannot control outcome by not making mistakes. You let go of that and you control process. And the other one that has great difficulty in trading, a lot of your engineers, your airline pilots, your medical doctors, a lot of people where you're seeing that they have been trained not to make mistakes. That is, they will intellectually and in theory know how to trade, but they don't have the emotional control of the right brain, of the emotional brain, to be able to use that knowledge under pressure. And I call that applied knowledge. Is that and the last one is the impulsive type, where they think they're going to get rich quick, and they want to make a lot of money, and there's that old joke in trading: if you want to make a small fortune in trading, start with a big fortune.
Yeah,
and,
yeah, right.
And until you grasp that you cannot be impulsive, okay, you cannot be impulsive. You can't, even though you want to make a lot of money, that's an outcome goal. And if you're allowing outcome goal to sway the mind that you bring into the moment of performance, it's not going to work. Trading is literally you let go of outcome goals, and everything is oriented around performance goals. Actually, one of your traders, basically in the system she's using, she was talking about taking the losses. The key is all professional traders take losses. And what they're doing is they're saying, do I trust the system I have? And do I have faith in my ability to deliver that system? They're not looking at their P&L statement. They know that if they manage performance, they manage their performances in the trade execution, they know that the money is going to be there. They back tested it. They have faith in that. And the key is what you're doing. You're staying very focused on how's my performance here. There is actually this is something that happened. I was watching, I really like hurdling, the race called hurdles. I tried in high school to become a hurdler, and it was a very ugly sight. But I gained an enormous amount of respect for how the body and the mind have to be trained to hurdle. And anyway, I'm watching the Olympics, and this American guy comes on, and all the announcers and journalists are talking about how he's going to win. He's just the most favored. He's the darling, and blah, 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 all this stuff. And they're just talking about him like as if he's already won the race. Well, the athletes get down, and these are really well-trained athletes at that level. And the truth is, the American just blew past everybody. And at the end of the race, he's sitting there huffing and puffing, trying to get his breath back, and all the announcers are talking about how they knew this, how that, and the other. And so they finally interviewed him while he was still, catching his breath, and they said, "What was it like? What was it like? What was it like?" And he's looking at him like, "What?" He says, "What was it like? What were you thinking when you saw that you were going to win? What were you thinking?" And the guy looked at the announcers and says, "You want to know what I was thinking?" And they literally said, "The world wants to know what you were thinking. Did you know you were going to set a world record? Did you know this? Did you know?" And he says, you want to know what I was thinking?" And they said, yes, tell me what you were thinking. Tell me what you were feeling. And he says, "I'll tell you then. And he said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And I want you to see that the announcers were projecting outcome. They were saying this is what he must be thinking. And what he was doing is he was managing performance. There is no doubt that a track coach has been working with that athlete for a number of years. There's no doubt that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 is a very precise mnemonic for what the body and the mind need to be doing at any particular moment in time in a hurdle race. There's no doubt that a really good sports psychologist has been working with this guy, working with the same 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 to maintain peak performance mind during that performance. Okay? And he is no longer, he is not into the outcome goal. He's not about winning the race. He is about performing the race. Now later, he gets on the podium and he gets his goal thing and he runs around, he's jubilant, he's really euphoric and all that stuff. And they're interviewing him and, he's talking about how he and his team have set up these outcome goals 8, 9, 10 years ago and how they were finally achieving them at this particular time. You can see that the outcome goals were there. But in the moment of performance, it was all process. Okay? And that's really what the trader has to learn. And it's a discipline. It's something that if you want to become a professional trader, you're just going to learn it. And you realize that it's going to be a little bit of a struggle to move from the mind that you brought to trading to the mind that produces the reliable extraction of capital out of the markets. But it's all about process in trading. And the speed of trading is so much faster than the speed of life that you don't have time for self-deception. It's just right there. It's like instant karma.
Right. So is there a particular stage in the trader journey where you see traders get the most value from performance coaching?
Yeah. It's when there is an experienced trader who can, when they are trading in simulation, they know how to trade. Okay? They have the knowledge of trading. The problem is they can't apply that trading to risk and uncertainty. At that particular moment in time, they're very clear that there is no external holy grail. They have the knowledge, they just can't apply it under pressure of risk. It's at that moment that they know they've come to the thing. It's kind of like the Pogo cartoon by the way, I have that cartoon sitting right over on my wall. And basically what happens is that it's called, you realize that you are the problem. You are the problem. You are the solution too. And you realize that you're going to have to rebuild the mind. And there's no shame in recognizing the mind that you so carefully crafted before you got into trading. It's not effective in trading. The real key is that are you a lover? Are you a student of trading enough where you're willing to rebuild the mind to work in probabilities? Because that's the big shift. And what they've assumed, if they work hard, if they're really good students, they're going to acquire this knowledge and they're going to become great traders. And you realize, no, that's just not the way it works in trading. You have to have knowledge. You really do. But you have to be able to apply that knowledge under pressure. And it's at that moment that those are the traders that I like, because they realize that their learning curve. If you've been around this block before, you know that 100,000, 500,000, a couple million, 5 million people have spent a lot of money earning their degree in trading. Mm-hmm. And when you come down to it and you realize, okay, it's the mind that I'm bringing into the moment that's the problem. That's when you realize that's the trader that you're looking for. It's the same thing in golf. What you discover is that there are a lot of professional golfers on the circuit. There's only about 10 money players in the game, though. And what you discover is that choking under pressure is that what you're looking for. Are you willing? Everybody in the PGA Tour can drive. Everybody can putt. Everybody can. But it's what you do and transform yourself under pressure that makes all the difference in the world. I mean, the guy the other day that missed a putt, it was like a 4-foot putt. He's done that. He's done that God knows how many thousands of times. But under that moment, you start going, that's where I need help. You'll see these professional golfers, they'll be bringing sports psychologists along with them. They just want to make sure that the process that they're using to manage their being at any particular time is not straying, because the money counts now, and they're doing that. And that's what I like. Is I like to see a trader come to the moment where he realizes that literally a lot of traders will say it's just right around the corner, it's so close I can almost feel it, and they recognize that, oh my God, I'm the barrier to my own success. That's the trader I like working with. They have the knowledge, they just don't have the emotional knowledge, because ultimately what you discover in this business is that emotions are making the mind that you're bringing to engage the markets with. And there is no such thing as freedom from, but the thing is, once you grasp, well, what emotion is going to show up when I encounter uncertainty? And if you leave it to default programming, it's not going to be pretty. You have to rebuild that mind so that when you have a homeostasis, is kind of like everything's just an even keel. And the moment there is a disruption to homeostasis, an emotion is going to show up. Uncertainty, literally the self-doubt of uncertainty, the ambiguity, is you're sitting there and all of a sudden you realize that, oh my God, what mind am I bringing there? Most people will be bringing a mind that is going to avoid uncertainty, okay? And what you're looking for to build is a mind that engages uncertainty, because within uncertainty is your money. And it's just that you have to rebuild it to work in probabilities rather than certainties. So it's the experienced trader who has recognized that they're the obstacle to their success. They've proven it to themselves, and they have the motivation, they have the courage to say, I want this enough so that I am going to rebuild the mind that I bring into the moment of performance. That's it's exciting to me.
Right. And what about the experienced trader who is already, profitable and performing quite well? What do they need to look out for to continue or extend operating at that peak?
The experienced trader that is basically extracting reasonable levels of capital, the biggest concern for them is euphoria. If you remember a few years back, J.P. Morgan and the whale, is that they evaporated $6 to $8 billion, and the whale himself evaporated well over $1 billion. These are really the whale and the crew there were really good traders. Nobody's disputing that. What happened though with these guys, and it's interesting, people are studying them at this time, is that the risk manager on that unit got sick, and she got very sick. And for about 3 to 4 months, she was not consistently at work. And she also had a disease that affected mental functioning. So she was not 100% on top of her traders, not letting them have too much testosterone. And during that time, these guys were being studied. Is that there was a neurobiologist studying them, and literally he would be taking saliva samples and recognizing, and he was measuring cortisol, anxiety, or testosterone risk-taking behavior. And what he realized is that these guys had so much testosterone in them, they were incapable of effective trading. Incapable, okay? Yet he administers self-assessment, emotional tests, and they would say, I'm flatlining it. I don't even have an emotion. They were so drunk with euphoria, okay, they didn't see that they were in trouble. And you see this when traders start reliably taking capital out of the markets, and they start saying, hey, yeah, this isn't so bad. Hey, I can do this. They're beginning to feel good. That feeling good moves from a humble confidence to an overconfidence subtly. It's hard to catch it. And that's where suddenly, and I see it with people who go through my coursework, is that I lay out a process that allows them to get into a particular mind that trades very well. And you develop rituals, you develop processes that allow you to manage the mind that you bring to trading, and you learn how to micromanage the mind during trading. And what they'll do is they'll say, hey, man, I've got it. I've got it down. I've got it down. And suddenly you start seeing them and their overconfidence saying, well, I don't need, I can take a shortcut. I don't really need to do all this stuff. And what you see is that overconfidence blinding them. And, suddenly they start having really bad days. They start having bad months. And you see that particularly with hedge funds where they're working like crazy at first and they start having this place and then they blow everything up and the cycle starts again. But to the accomplished trader, euphoria is a far more greater demon than fear. Your fear is going to be keeping you out of trades. The thing is the euphoria, which by the way is a mixture of dopamine and testosterone, is that is the one that the experienced trader needs to be careful of. Is actually when I was speaking in China one time, I said, when you're trading, basically you are not looking to have fear or euphoria. Basically what you are is you have discipline, impartiality. That's the emotional state you want thinking to come from. And I actually had a trader say, what are you telling me? Are you telling me that I shouldn't feel good while I'm trading? I said, exactly. I don't want you feeling good. That is euphoria. And it's going to distort thinking in the same way that fear will distort thinking. We want you in discipline and impartiality where it allows you to see in such a way that highly effectively manages probability. Okay? If you have too much euphoria, you're minimizing the amount of risk that you're putting on. Hey, man, I'm on a roll, and things are going to go on good forever now. No, that's not true. This is a game of probability. But that's the main thing with really experienced traders. That's the big one.
Oh, great. And okay, so just before we move on to some listener questions, I'd just like to ask you a question for the skeptics, because I'm sure there's skeptics out there that think trading psychology is some type of voodoo or fluffy concept that doesn't really mean anything. How would you respond to those type of questions?
Well, the first thing is, are they extracting capital reliably out of the markets or not? Okay. If they are, it's a different thing. If they're not extracting capital, then I consider them just to be blind as bats. And I don't really see any reason to even address them. There's no reason for me to waste perfectly good breath on a closed mind. For people who happen to have been born and won the genetics lottery and had the right mind, basically what happens is that in there, what you're looking at is you're asking, as you evolve as a trader, how have you grown to be able to manage mind? And most traders I've run into, what happens, they recognize an evolution, then they don't understand why other traders just don't have this mind off the shelf. And, for them, I'm going, well, good for you. You'll see a lot of those as trader trainers, and they get just absolutely mystified by, as they train people, they don't understand why they're having problems. But to the other people, what you're looking at is going, well, are you satisfied with your performance? If you're satisfied with your performance and you recognize that the building of emotion creates the mind, then, what you're looking at is, tell me about your performance. And if your performance is at a particular level that allows you to poo-poo it, then I'm okay with that. That's not from, I just don't know. Most traders I know who perform on a really an expert level, they're fairly humble because they know that if they do not maintain the humbleness when in market, is that the markets will humble them again. So I don't see that. I find is just like in the golf world, you can say sports psychology doesn't matter, but when you start seeing that there's very few people who can play golf in the clutch, and until you master the basically the breakdowns in the clutch, that's all psychology. So, Andrew, I have on a weekly basis, I will have people write me and they will say, Randy, I wish I had listened to you. I can no longer afford you, but I've run through this stuff, and I believe strongly that I had everything together. And what I realized that I didn't have was, basically the emotional alchemy together to create mind at trade. So my view is, I don't feel like preaching to people who haven't got it yet. I don't need to. The markets will teach them, and my hope is that they still have capital left when they finally wake up and come to their senses. So I don't know if that makes sense to you or not.
Yeah, sure. All right, thanks, Randy. So I'd just like to go to a couple of quick reader questions now, listener questions. The first one is from Craig. He asks, do you have any mental exercises that we should be doing before the market opens and during the trading session? What is a good one for letting profits run? At present, I visualize both a stop out and also a successful trailing stop exit, and is better than nothing. Do you have anything better for this particular problem?
Well, Craig, first of all, I train that. So this is a more complex, but I can tell you this on a I believe that it is highly dangerous for you to sit up in front of your screens, populate your charts with whatever mind that shows up. Is that I actually teach a process where part of it's very simple. It's been going on for a long time. Is that it starts where you wake up. What you're doing is you're scanning your body for tension. And people who work with me know that tension actually is arousal of an emotion, and you better catch it now before it erupts and becomes a feeling state where the chemistry in the body. People I work with will have a process they go through where they are both breathing, calming the body, and then they will be practicing mindfulness. And I teach a process that's different than a lot of Eastern forms of mindfulness. Is that I'm teaching people to step back and watch thought and recognize that you and your thinking, you and your beliefs are not the same. Is that all the mind is a particular organization that basically emotional programs have organized you into. And the default programming is not who you are. It's just that it's the one that happened before you knew what was going on. In mindfulness, you're stepping back and you're observing, and you're observing far both what I would call the empowered elements of the self that allow you to maintain discipline and impartiality, but you're also intentionally observing for your fear. And what you're doing is you're turning toward that fear and you're calming it down. You're not ignoring the fear, because that fear, if you turn away from it, it will bite you. So the first thing is you're turning toward that and you're calming it down. And self-soothing is a big element. And I have other language and other ways of identifying these elements of discipline, impartiality, courage, and self-soothing in my work. But what you're doing is you're finding these elements and you're maintaining this, what I call sobriety of mind, sobriety of emotion. You're doing that before you start trading. Every star athlete has pre-rehearsal. They have a mind they're getting into before performance. Then what I also do is I know that particular mind state is good from anywhere for as much as 45 minutes to as little as 20 or 30 seconds. If you happen to be an alpha that likes to chase trades, that would be the 20 to 30 second. What you're doing is you're saying, okay, where are the areas that I generally have problems in trading? And what you're doing is you're saying, instead of trying to ignore those areas, I am going to step back, and I'm going to prepare the mind for that moment before I enter it, rather than hoping like hell that something doesn't happen this time. Now, to your question of letting profits run, is that if you were to go to my website right now, there's an article called The Micromanagement of Psychology, where I break the trading cycle down into 9 functions, where there are these 9 processes. And in my work, what I discover is that people who are having problems taking profits, they're taking too early. They think that's where I have the problem. if I only can conquer that problem right there, then I'm going to be okay. And I do have techniques for that, but the caution I have is a lot of people are looking for techniques where I'm looking at changing the whole perceptual map of the mind. That's a big thing. Actually, what I find is that most people who have trade management problems, the problem actually happens at order fill. There is an enormous shift. In American football, we have what is known as an offensive coordinator running the offense, and they're looking for opportunity. And you have a defensive coordinator who is basically defending turf. They think very differently from one another. And a very common problem that I see is a person will get into entry, the order will fill, but they do not move from offensive thinking to defensive thinking. Mm. If you are at order fill, you need to be observing yourself. And again, this is something where I do with video and I do things like that. But when you start seeing yourself, you will see yourself fixated on a screen. You will see your heart rate beginning to pulse. You'll see that you're not breathing. You have already started the clock for mismanaging taking your profits too early. Okay? But let's just say you got past that and you're in this position, is that what I will do is I will train people once they understand my system and can actually use it. I will train people saying, okay, say if you're using, and you guys are using a system where you're supposed to just let things go, but if you're using indicators, or if you're looking at a target and you know this is what my target is, and what you're doing is you're saying, okay, the very moment that thing hits black, it's been bouncing around, all this kind of stuff, and, it's twirled me around. Most likely you have not managed the psychology then, so suddenly when you start seeing there's a little bit of profit, you're already taking it. You have to step back even there, but when you get to the blank, what you're doing is you are training yourself to take a pause, to step back, and to reorganize the psychology right there. It's not so much visualizing the stop or the target. What you're doing is you're saying, what I need to be doing is I need to be turning toward the fear and calming it down. And what it seems counterintuitive that I'm going to focus on the positive over here, and I'm going to look at my target, and I'm going to visualize that. Well, you're ignoring the biology of fear staring you in the face. If you do not manage that fear, calm that fear down, and it would be, I call it self-soothing, self-compassion. Unless you do that, the fear is going to hijack thinking anyway. There's no way around. There is no such thing as freedom from emotion. However, with awareness, you can come in, you can start saying, I need to train myself for that specific moment. And I actually had a person here who, in your notes, worked with a trading psychologist for a number of years about basically at this particular incremental moment. I'm going, dear God, I've never worked with a person for more than 2 years. This guy had like 4 or 6 years and couldn't solve a problem. This is something, once you understand the dynamics of the way the brain works, your brain literally, to a neuroscientist, is a community of rival emotional programs that has organized you into a self that can survive in an environment. And that would be taking your profits when you finally get them because of scarcity thinking. Okay, that would be default programming. Your mind becomes like a trading committee where these programs now are no longer electrical behavior in the brain. They are now thoughts with voice in your mind. And what you're doing is you're experiencing the inner struggle between these programs when you're, stay in, no, get out. That's the inner struggle. And I have a way of defining that inner struggle so that you're able to name the parts of the self. And you discover very quickly that's the ticket. I'll give you a really good example. I worked with a guy who for 30 years flew an enormously large cargo jet for the U.S. Air Force. It's called a C-5. And I like to call them a flying football field. They're giant aircraft. It took a team of men to fly that aircraft. And This guy said, you know something, I grew up in the Air Force, I did all this stuff. I assumed I had discipline, I assumed that I had confidence. But what I discovered when I started trading is that it all went away. And I finally discovered the Air Force had built a team externally where all these elements were there, all these elements of the self necessary for great performance, they were there. What I had to realize is that when I started trading, is that I had to recreate that team internally, okay, rather than depending on it externally. And in that, he recognized that his mind really was a fractal of the outer world too, and he realized he could build that internal team that could manage when it popped up, that fear of missing out of profit. It could manage that, but he was also anticipating that it was going to happen and was able to calm the fear down so that he was back with the probability-based mind. Now, I don't know if that answers your question the way you want it, but that's the way I teach, the way that I use it, is that it's just not, techniques are, they're just techniques. Ultimately what you're having to do is you're having to recognize the nature of brain and the nature of mind, and using that understanding to rebuild the mind that you bring into uncertainty. That's what you've got to do. It's not just technique driven, yet at the same time, if you look at my programs, they're very technique driven. But fundamentally what you're getting at is you are reorganizing these emotional programs and the meaning of those programs into a very different mind. And you turn toward the fear, okay? You turn toward the fear and you approach that fear with compassion. And interestingly, what most traders don't grasp is that the antidote to fear is not courage. It is compassion. Compassion is beating yourself up has never made a better trader. But compassion calms everything down. It calms that fearful part of yourself down so that it's not scared to make a mistake. It's not scared of what might happen. Is that it knows that it has a place. It knows that biological threat is not there. This is psychological discomfort, and that we can manage. We have tools and skills to be able to manage the psychological discomfort, and the amygdala, the part that's actually hijacking you, begins to trust the higher brain function of the neocortex. That's when you have a professional trader, and that's when you transform the mind from scarcity thinking into probability thinking. I don't think of it as prosperity thinking. I think of it as probability thinking. Prosperity thinking is from my standpoint, has too much euphoria in it, and it's going to blow you up. I know that may not be the answer that you were seeking, my friend, but ultimately, part of it's technique, but part of it is, no, you have to reorganize the mind. And that's not going to be done by technique. That's going to be done by turning toward the fear and learning from the fear.
Right, that's a great response. Thanks, Randy. Just one last question. You've already touched on it a little bit, but I think it's quite a common issue, so I'd like to just raise it again. It's handling drawdowns or periods of, strings of losing trades, etc. So the question from Nancy, she's been trading for quite a while now. She has a system with positive expectancy, and she's seen backtest results, and the drawdown she's currently in is quite normal for the strategy. She just wants to know, are there any techniques or to help her continue taking the trades even when she's being beaten up by the market?
Yeah. First of all, you go back to the emotional regulation stuff we said in the beginning, is that you have to be able to regulate the biology of the emotion. That's your breathing. That's the tension. That's the first thing. Otherwise, you don't have a way to break the emotion, and it keeps building and building and building. That's the first thing. The second thing is, do you have trust in your system? Okay. And then, do you have faith in yourself? That's ultimately what it comes down to. And this is the major distinction. And I actually like the way she's saying this, is that your biology and your psychology will always want to control outcome. It will always want to have a short-term survival strategy that allows me I win this time, I win. A professional trader has enough faith in their system so that they know that as long as I am bringing the performance, okay, to the process, as long as I'm controlling the mind that I bring into the moment of execution, when I do that, what I know is that the money will take care of itself through bad times and good. What I ask of you is this, is that what you're seeing is a short-term, you're looking at the biology of short-term focus of survival. And what you're doing is you literally are going to have to practice the probability-based mind of saying, ultimately, when in my training, what I do is I ask the person, is this a method mistake? No, I would take that trade again. It met my criterion to go, is it a psychological mistake? Did fear show up? Did grandiosity? Did euphoria show up? Nope. I managed it straight. Then what we're saying is this is just simply landing on the wrong side of probability. And you would take the same trade over and over again. This is actually the act of trading, and this is where you really truly have to bring compassion, because it is your legitimate suffering, okay? And what you're doing is you are compassionately bringing that, and what you're doing is you're saying to the amygdala, or what I would call the orphan, what you're doing is saying, we're doing everything right, we have positive expectancy, we can do this, I need to turn toward you, I need to hold you, I need to take you with me. The amygdala will learn over time to trust higher brain function. If you recognize that you have to soothe fear, because understand, the amygdala will never be able to separate biological threat from psychological discomfort. That's what you have to do. Literally, you're saying amygdala, or orphan, as I would use the language, this is psychological discomfort. I've taken a loss, okay? We have positive expectancy. We're going to breathe through this. And if you don't resist that fear, what you discover, like with a panic attack, if you use breathing and relaxation technology, what you're doing is you're realizing the panic attack lasts for about 20 minutes. If you resist it, you feel like you're having a heart attack and have to go to the emergency room. So it's the same thing, is that you're saying, I understand that we've taken a loss and there's going to be a period here, and we're going to show you that we can be adults, we have higher brain function, and we're going to show you that this thing's going to have positive expectancy. And when it turns around and starts going the other way, don't go yippee, yippee. Say, orphan amygdala, do you notice that now we've just simply landing on the different side of probability? We're landing on the side of probability that we would prefer being on all the time, but the truth is we can only control our performance. And what you'll notice over a period of 4 or 5 months is that as you do that, the amygdala will start calming down, and it's no longer doing that hijacking business, and you'll be able to have a better state of mind, because ultimately you should be in a place where you're simply going next. I'm controlling the one thing that I can control, the mind that I'm bringing into performance. And that's literally what the professional trader is doing. But it takes work. I know that. I see lots of traders. You take some drawdowns and you take some hits, and you need to talk to yourself, and you need to be talking to yourself from a higher self rather than, oh my God, what's happening? Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. You need to control the internal dialogue rather than the default dialogue going on inside your head. That takes some training though. But that's how you do it.
Right. And so for traders who have other questions, what's the best way that they can get in touch with you?
My website is the easiest thing. That's www.traders state of mind, all one word with 2 S's. And on my website, you'll discover is that it is a content-rich site. Gobs and gobs of free articles, gobs and gobs of free videos. There's a free ebook, and I would encourage that. It's a good start. And my book, Mindful Trading, is available on my website. I discovered a long time ago that, I'm not going to give all the money away of a book to a publisher or to Amazon. So it's just crazy. But at any rate, if you want to get to know more about my work, as get my book. And if you're from Australia, please do not order the paper, the printed version. Please do not.
Shipping costs.
It's just like, oh gosh. But the major thing is that what I want people to do is, in the book, I lay out a process that takes traders who are bull in china shops. They do not know why they're blowing themselves up. They know how to trade and they're just blowing themselves up, to where you have the evolved mind of a professional trader at the end. And you're seeing through their eyes, you're seeing that evolution and what's behind that evolution. That's where most people start, and they start looking at the self-study. I don't understand why people get that. Basically, for a couple $100 more, you can join one of my group courses that has all the recordings and all that kind of just lots and lots of stuff. And you just never attend classes. We get a lot of folks, particularly from Singapore and Hong Kong and Australia, who will join my group courses, and they never show up. I mean, I'm doing it at 4:30 in the afternoon, New York time, so I understand why they're not. But what they do is they have the lectures, they have the processing, they have all that stuff now, and they have the virtual classroom, and they can study it at their own will. And my individual course is for people who are really serious about trading. It's for people who are capitalized well enough to recognize that they have left $3,500 on the table or blown $3,500 numerous times, and it's enormously comprehensive. And in the individual course, I'm getting into this micromanagement stuff and the movement from one level of contracts to another level, and we're working on. It's highly personalized and highly comprehensive, and there's stuff in it that are just simply not in the group course. So it's all over the place, but it starts with go to the website.
And check out the ebook as well. I was looking at that the other day, and there's so much great content in there. So loads of things for people to read and to apply to their own trading. So thanks so much for sharing your knowledge with us today, Randy.
It has been fun.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. So I highly recommend everyone go to Randy's website. I'll have a link to that in the show notes, and go and check out his books and courses as well. He's got some excellent resources up there. So Randy, thanks again for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Andrew, it's been a lot of fun, and I guess you can go to sleep. And I'm fully awake now, so life is good.
Yeah, well, enjoy your day.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Randy. Bye-bye. Great chat with Randy, wasn't it? I found it really interesting that emotions are biological, not psychological. If you monitor your body as you're trading, you'll notice little cues like the rapid tapping of your foot, jaw clenching, rapid breath, etc. So this could mean that your mindset is entering into a stage where you're not thinking clearly. Randy's tip was to be observant of the signals your body is telling you before they impact your trading. And another one was proper breathing will disrupt the ability for fear to maintain itself. He also had a number of great stories. I really liked the story of the hurdler who was asked what he was thinking when he realized he was going to win his race. His response was 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, which really shows his focus was purely on the process rather than the outcome. This is also how a trader should approach trading, because the only thing we can control is the process. We cannot control the outcome. There were loads more great points Randy raised today, but those were two of my favourites. Anyway, don't forget to check the show notes on the website, where we have additional information and links to Randy's book, his free ebook, and some additional videos. The show notes are available at bettersystemtrader.com/14, so go check it out. Also, a big thank you to everyone that submitted questions for Randy this week. If you'd like to submit a question for future guests, make sure you're on the Better System Trader mailing list, and I'll send you an email when the next opportunity arises. Plus, don't forget, if you haven't submitted your biggest trading challenge, go to bettersystemtrader.com/mytrading, answer the 4 simple questions, and we'll use that to drive future episodes. Anyway, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed the chat with Randy and you've picked up some valuable tips to improving your trading performance. Thanks for listening to the Better System Trader podcast. Catch you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Better System Trader podcast. The next step is to head over to bettersystemtrader.com for more expert tips, practical advice, and exclusive content. Catch us next time for even more great ways to improve your trading here on Better System Trader.